shot clock put it up on the board, so that might be ready. Art Battle Dallas 2023. You can catch us on Netflix next season. 2, 1, let's go.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Art Battle Dallas. We have just begun the timer for round number 1. These artists have 20 minutes only on the clock to create these masterpieces in front of a live audience from start to finish. We have our first 6 artists up: Catherine Rodriguez, Harris Fertovic, Tori Peterson, Mary Hart, Josiah Hyder, and Mo Muñez. We can see right now this artist is using a reference, and here we are with this artist who is going, Mo Muñez, going hard with the red, which I really appreciate. Off to a very bold start there for sure. And here we are with Josiah Hyder, who is throwing down some brown onto the canvas, which I think is a great way to ground the canvas. That's an artist term where you tone the canvas with a color underneath so that it's easier to work on top of. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to kind of battle the white of a canvas. Sometimes it's nice to have a color underneath there. Here we are with Catherine, I believe, and have just switched over. And this artist we can see is laying down some paint, or laying down some tape, which is one of my absolute favorite art battle strategies. We often get this like beautiful, crispy tape pull, so I really hope that we catch that moment here. And here we are. We can see this artist is using a reference, has brought an original piece on paper to work off of. I love seeing that strategy from an artist. You can really tell that they've put a lot of time into preparing for the battle, and that just goes to show how serious they are using that reference, having created a piece specifically for prepping their art battle piece. And here we are with Mo again, and the red, and almost the way that he's framing that. I like that the red is coming through into the center of the canvas, and that he's using the center white to kind of provide some highlight. And we can see this artist is, originally I was thinking it was a taco, but now I'm starting to get froggy vibes. It looks like we're getting some eyes going down, and potentially the shape of the underside of the chin of the frog. And we can see this artist here already got quite a lot done in terms of framing out a portrait. We've got a lot of really vibrant hair going on with the cerulean and the dark black. I think that's a really great way to provide that highlight using the cerulean rather than just a white. Really communicates this kind of almost like a rockabilly vibe going on. And especially as we're seeing the eyes being put into the portrait here, getting that kind of stylized flick of eyeliner. It's almost seeming a little bit like Amy Winehouse to me. And this artist here, we have doing some really, really interesting techniques that I'm very, very excited about. We have pattern happening in all of these taped off areas, which is providing some really, really interesting opportunities for eye movement. And here we are with Harris. And something interesting about Harris's practice is that he only paints with his hands, which I think is just so cool. And look at the way that all of these colors are blending together just by using Harris's fingers here. And we're getting these beautiful blends, this gorgeous gradient, and potentially what I think might be a portrait in the bottom third of the canvas. We've got kind of that circular shape going, which I think is going to turn into the head of a figure. And here we are with Tori Peterson, and Tori is executing so closely to her reference here, and I really love that. Always love seeing skull art at Art Battle. It's often very popular. And the crowd really seems to enjoy it. Again, there's a lot of great attitude that's going on in this piece, almost like a tattoo inspired. And back with Mo Mumez, and we can see that he's used the negative space that he had on the canvas, that white stripe down the center. He's used that blank portion to be able to layer blue on top of it, and it's just providing such a great contrast to the super, super vibrant and saturated red that we have going on the sides. And Mo is having so much fun as well. We can really see that he's vibing to the music, which we can't necessarily put to the stream just because of copyright issues, but he's just vibing and really like engaged with his brushstrokes as well. And I just think that that is so wonderful. Here we are with Josiah. And this piece just keeps morphing. So we've got kind of this hand situation going on. And the hand has these dark lines coming out of it. I feel like I haven't quite understood exactly where this piece is going yet, but I'm really enjoying the journey for sure. And the way that Josiah is layering on the color here, he's achieving a really great level of opacity, which can be quite difficult when you're working on a darker ground with lighter colors. And this is Mary Hart. And Mary is, again, working into this portrait here that is still giving me Amy Winehouse vibes. Just, I think, from the shape of the face, that kind of elongated portraiture there, and the bouffant of the hair. Really loving this piece. I think that she's capturing this portrait really well. There's a lot of great eye contact going on. We are just about halfway through the round. These artists have about 11 minutes remaining on the clock. Voting is now open at artbattle.com/AB2376 is where you're going to cast your vote. All of the works created today are also available in silent auction on that same website. So some really interesting stuff going on here. This is Tori Peterson. Tori has done some really, really cool techniques where she's created this kind of chaotic patterned background and is now layering a pop art portrait on top of it. And the way that that execution is going is just so interesting. And I really appreciate that Tori took so much time in doing the background. Often when we're in this kind of timed setting, the background kind of takes a back seat and is not the priority, especially when you're layering a portrait over top of it. So to be having this approach reversed from Tori doing the background and then leading into the portrait is very interesting. We're also seeing that here from Harris, I think. Harris has spent a lot of time creating this gorgeous gradient with his hands in the background. And this is Katrin Rodriguez, who is working with that lovely reference that we were talking about previously. And the illustrative quality here, I think, is really cool and is coming across in a really graphic way, which I think is going to be appreciated by the audience. Something that is to be considered at Art Battle is the way that the crowd is able to see the piece. So is the piece loud enough? Is the piece graphic enough that it can be perceived and appreciated from a distance as well as up close? So we have the opportunity with our camera here to see the work up close and to see how beautiful and specific these lines are, but they're bold enough that they're also going to be communicating to the crowd, who are quite a few feet back as well. Back with Mo here, and again, just so enjoying the energy that he's bringing to this performance here. And again, I think the crowd is going to appreciate that. The crowd really vibes off of the artists, and the artists are vibing off of the crowd right now. So I feel like this kind of joyful style of painting is very inclusive of the crowd, and I think is going to win Mo a lot of hearts for sure. And this piece is just going so well. Loving the application technique of the red of the lips with that palette knife. I always admire when artists are working with a palette knife because there's an opportunity there to kind of lean into spontaneity. It's not quite as specific in the way that you're applying paint with a brush. When you're working with a palette knife, you really have to embrace some level of imperfection. And I always really, really enjoy that. I think that it's a great opportunity to provide texture as well. And back with Josiah here. And again, just working into that opacity there. And with Mary Hart here. And again, just the use of the cerulean blue right up against the black to create these highlights is such a fun element. And we're also getting that tie-in in the color of the eyes. Here with Tori, and Tori's piece is just so much fun. There's so much vibrancy happening in the background of the piece, and then we've got this gray-toned grayscale portrait happening over top with all of these beautiful swirling lines that are just dragging the paint through. Very painterly application, but a very pop art kind of subject matter and style in terms of using these dots. That's almost evocative of kind of a Roy Lichtenstein pop art comic kind of space. So we have 6.5 minutes left on the clock, and these artists are just going into their final chapter of creating these live pieces, really trying to get into that space of figuring out what the priority is in terms of how to finish the piece. Because often time can get away from these artists, and in these last few minutes, you really have to create those priorities of what is going to provide the best finishing touch to this piece. Also, it can be difficult for artists in these last few minutes because the piece might be finished already, and not having the opportunity and the time to step back and assess the piece, they might end up overpainting it at that point. It's difficult to see and difficult to tell, but I think these artists are doing a great job with their time management so far in round number 1 of Art Battle Dallas. Back with Katrin here, and she has just done such a fantastic job of keeping this piece really, really clean. And this gorgeous turquoise that she's layering on here is providing an excellent color contrast to that kind of gold yellow hue that she's got going on in the crown of the skull. Lots of great highlights being added in here by Mo. Really choosing these gorgeous highlight moments on the outer edges of the curves of this figure to really highlight the way that the shape is rounded and the way that light is hitting the body. And we can see that Mo is taking that opportunity in the last few minutes to kind of step back just slightly to kind of assess where everything's going. Back with Josiah here. And this piece is continuing to develop. Looks like we've got some teeth going on that have just been executed. So potentially we're getting another skull here. I think that maybe that's where this piece is starting to go. Getting that hit of red kind of menacing in this eye socket here. And with the addition of these two nostril shapes. So this piece is really coming together in the last few minutes. And that's something that I think is always appreciated at Art Battle is the kind of element of surprise in the way that a piece develops, especially if the piece is more abstracted throughout the performance as it comes together in the last final few minutes. It's a really exciting thing for the crowd to be viewing because we're kind of, now we're in on this idea and this kind of figure is being revealed to us, and it's almost that like aha moment. Back with Mary here, putting her final finishing touches on this portrait, and we can see that some yellow is now being added into the skin tone, again with this knife. And I think that that's going to provide a great color contrast to that blue that we're really enjoying. And we've also got that hit of yellow on the shoulder there, which I think is really helping to bring it forward in space. And then, of course, one of my favorite elements of a portrait is just a little hint of a rosy cheek, and we're getting that right now. So we have 2 minutes remaining on the clock. These artists are in their final finishing touches. Everyone is looking pretty calm, which just goes to show how pro these artists are, for sure. And we can see that Tori is now going back into the background a little bit just to provide a small amount of balance by creating these triangular shapes with these shaped sponges again to kind of balance out all of the circles that she's got going on in some of the quadrants. This piece is so much fun. Harris has just done such an excellent job of building this piece. This piece has so much depth and is just really beautiful in the way that all of the colors are kind of melded together. And you can even see in the background and in some of the features on this figure, this abstracted figure, you can see his finger marks. And it's just so cool. It's really the most mature style of finger painting I think that I've ever seen, and I really appreciate it. I think the crowd is also going to be really wowed by this piece. One, because it's a beautiful piece. It's communicating visually just so gorgeously. But also, I think that everyone is going to be really engaged with the hand and finger style of painting. I think that that's going to be an edge that Harris has. And back with Katrin. And Katrin is putting on just these very final finishing touches on this piece. Again, keeping it just so tight, very illustrative, and just really careful line work here. And when you're painting in a live space, doing these careful lines can be really difficult because you can't necessarily rest your hand on the canvas because the paint underneath is wet as well, so you might smudge the work. But looks like Katrin is doing a great job there.
Something to drink. We got tamales, we got elotes, we got paletas outside. Make sure you get you some. I know you hungry. The bar is still open. Get you something to drink. Make sure you register to vote. Vote. You can vote for your favorite contestant, no problem. Just go up to the registration table, give me your phone number, that takes you the link. Register to vote. Register to vote. Everything goes up for sale. If you want to buy it, you can purchase it. If you want to buy it, you can purchase it. Just make sure they send you the link to your favorite piece. One more time, I need everybody to make some noise for these artists. One more time, make some noise. My boy DJ right there, gonna keep it locked and tuned all day. Y'all make sure you check it out. Tag us on Instagram. Let's go.
A super exciting first round for Art Battle in Dallas. 6 really wonderful paintings, so many different execution styles from these artists. Now comes the hard part for you and for the crowd that's in the room. You guys got to vote on which artist you think is best from this round. The top 2 artists from this round and the top 2 artists from the next round will move forward into a 4-artist final. So not only are you thinking about which painting you think is visually the best, but also think about which artist's performance you enjoyed the most and who do you want to see paint again. So you can go to artbattle.com/AB2376 to register and cast your vote. All of the works created are also available for silent auction. A lot of these artists are selling for quite high numbers out of their studio, so it's a great opportunity to get an affordable piece of art and take this memory home with you and have it displayed in your space. So that voting link and bidding link is up on the screen now, artbattle.com/AB2376. We will be back in just a few minutes for round number 2 with our next 6 artists and another 20 minutes and blank canvas on the easel.
Right now we're about to get ready for round number 2. Round number 2, we got some new contestants and we got some old contestants. So people that keep coming back every time. I'm trying to step out, but they bring it right back in. Here we go. Y'all make some noise one time.
We are back for Art Battle in Dallas. Round number 2, we have 6 more awesome artists stepped up to the easel right now and tackling these blank canvases with only 20 minutes on the clock. It looks like we're off to a strong, energetic start already from our wildcard artist, Robert Nelson here. It looks like he's throwing some paint down with a giant palette knife. Lots of bold color work going down, heavy application technique. I love to see a bold start for sure. Lots of those cerulean blues. Looks like we've got some ultramarine blue and maybe some black potentially in there as well. I'm not familiar with Robert's work because he is a wildcard artist. That means that he was an artist that was drawn from the crowd to take their place in the last easel spot available today. So Robert had no time to prepare and has now just been thrown up to the easel. And it takes a lot of courage and creativity to put your name in for the wild card. So congrats to Robert. Here we are with Michelle. And Michelle has laid down some tape as well, which I always think is a great opening move. It really helps to create a lot of interest from the crowd because they're kind of wondering where you're going to be going with that technique. Some kind of brown wash going over the tape right now, and it looks like that paint has been watered down a little bit, so hopefully it doesn't bleed underneath. And here we are with Adriana Holland. And I know that Adriana was someone that I was particularly excited about seeing at Art Battle Dallas today. Adriana really specializes in creating these just absolutely gorgeous cloudscapes. And I am sure that we are being treated to that right now, just with the soft gradient that we've got going on, this beautiful sky blue, and these soft colors coming in from the edges of the canvas. I'm really excited about this piece. I feel like it's going to be just gorgeous and really interested in seeing how she accomplishes those soft textures. Back with Chris Allen here. And Chris is someone who I was also excited to see at the easel today because Chris has this really, really interesting illustrative style that kind of is seemingly influenced a little bit by street art and is very angular and really specific in its line work. And Chris is also pretty well known for creating character-driven work. And we can see that he's definitely creating a character right now. We've got this almost like a monster portrait going on with these two stylized eyes that are very close to each other. A lot of angularity in the features of this creature so far, and definitely even just in the first few minutes that we are viewing Chris painting, I'm seeing that this is very recognizable to his style. If you guys are interested in seeing what the artist's studio work looks like, what the artists are used to painting when they're not painting on a timer at Art Battle, you can go to the Art Battle Dallas Instagram, and we have linked all of their profiles there. So after the show, make sure that you go there and give them some support. Here we are with Trey Thompson, and I cannot wait to see what Trey does. Trey works in this very specific style that is blending illustration and realism, often incorporating darker elements. So can't wait to see where he goes with that. Although I am seeing that we're getting a little bit of a sneak peek of Trey's reference here, and this is totally outside of what I was expecting from him. It looks like we're gonna get a bird with some florals here. And this execution already is just going so well in our first 5 minutes here with Trey. And the way that he's holding the palette with the reference underneath as well, I think is really smart. When we come around next time, I'll touch on that a little bit more. And here we are with Jessica Rojas, and Jessica is inspired by surrealism, also creating character-driven work, and blending painterly elements with these kind of more surreal elements as well. And we can definitely see that that's being fully displayed here. We've got this very painterly application technique of heavier paint going on, and what initially seems like a portrait, but could go anywhere. And back with Robert Nelson here. And Robert, again, working with these larger tools, these palette knives, very interesting technique here. And definitely a brave one. I know that palette knife work can be very intimidating. I know that I, in particular, am intimidated by it. You really have to embrace sort of an element of spontaneity when you're working with a palette knife, and kind of guiding the paint with the knife. Here we are with Michelle Johnson, and we have gotten that tape lift, and we have these gorgeous, crisp white lines going through the canvas here, and we can see that Michelle is laying her portraits figures, or her portraits features, over top of these negative space elements that she's created with that tape to provide the highlight. So I'm interested to see how that continues to develop, and how those lines continue to become incorporated into the piece. Here with Adriana, and we are just getting this just beautiful softness, really this cloudscape almost. And we can see that Adriana is also having a lot of fun too, vibing with the music that's in the room. And yeah, it looks like all of our artists are having a great time, and our staff too. Always fantastic to see that energy, and I think that the crowd also relates really well to the artists that are enjoying themselves as well, because it all feels like a party. And when you're watching artists that are vibing out and having a great time, you relate to them and you become closer to their work, and you start to root for them. With Chris Allen here, and we can see that this monster has now turned into, with the addition of the red, this kind of stylized devil. So very cool execution there. A lot of negative space, so looking forward to how Chris brings that together. Trey working on this bird piece with these cascading flowers coming over the side of the canvas, kind of leading the eye in a circular way around the composition. Really great eye movement and what we call eye bounce for the eyes to move throughout the painting, and we have these compositional elements that are kind of creating that guiding force. And what I wanted to mention previously was the way that Trey is holding his reference underneath his clear palette is so smart, because we can see him mixing his colors with the reference underneath, and because the palette is clear, he's getting that color accuracy and can match the color to the reference right on the spot, which I think is such a smart move. Here we are with Jessica Rojas again, and our what I initially had thought was a portrait has now morphed into this super surreal portrait. So we've got almost this kind of cyclops figure going on, still with some kind of feminine elements coming through. We've got this long hair, some emphasis. And back with Michelle Johnson here, and we can see that Michelle has covered up some of the stripes that she had initially laid down with the tape there. So I think that she's chosen to go in a different direction, but we do still have that initial kind of main stripe going on that is running underneath the eyes. But we can see that Michelle has obscured it up at the top, that stripe with the hair, and also the stripe that was underneath the nose, and she's kind of blended over that. Back to visit Adriana here, and it's so fun to see her executing the softness of these clouds with while going to a beat, and you can see that she's pressing her brush quite hard on the canvas and kind of dabbing it on there. So it's interesting to see this soft result coming from an execution that is just a little bit aggressive, and I think it makes this piece that much more engaging. Getting all of these just gorgeous layers and really, really subtle variations of tone within this cloudscape here. And we're just getting the peak of highlight just skimming across the very top parts of the clouds. And we're having these soft shadows just playing underneath that as well. I'm wondering whether or not we're going to get anything happening in the center of the canvas. Right now it looks like we have a small suggestion of something kind of floating in the sky there. So interested to see how that continues to develop. Back over here with Chris Allen, and Chris is just executing this piece with so much style and so much specificity. We have a really tight line work here, these kind of compartmentalized colors with the yellow and the red. And we can see that Chris has kind of created this washy tone underneath and is now painting in his more opaque colors over top. And I think that the addition of these highly saturated opaque colors into the composition just really creates that kind of finishing touch for this piece. And we can see that he's so careful in the way that he's applying this paint. It's so flat and just going on in such a great, smooth, buttery way. I would not be surprised if Chris had practiced this piece in a timed setting, because he's building it really, really well, taking very careful consideration into each step. Coming back around to Trey Thompson now. And we have just about 5 minutes remaining on the clock. We are in our final quarter of the round. These artists are now applying their final finishing touches, just really tidying up any missing elements. Again, the movement in this piece, I think, is really what is the most impactful, with the elongation of this floral vine and the way that it is also rising up from the bottom toward the end of the vine. And then that's kind of leading into the bird, and then the beak of this hummingbird is connecting again with the flowers. So we have this beautiful circular composition going around. There is still a fair amount of negative space with that white, And I'm wondering if Trey is going to be adding any additional colors in to kind of balance that, or if he's looking to just really emphasize the saturation by working on top of that white background. Back with Jessica Rojas. And we can see a lot of energy is being imbued into this piece. We have these colors kind of coming from the bottom of the head of this Cyclops creature and rising around the head as well, kind of creating this like very energetic style of painting, and creating a little bit of a sense of menace almost. And Jessica has chosen to balance this piece by having those dripping elements of paint in the top corner. And I think that that's really helping the composition, and creating that balance. And also and collected as they place their final strokes, just getting into those finishing touches on these pieces. Here with Adriana, and we can really see how she's emphasized the highlights on the crests of these clouds. Just a really gorgeous technique here. And potentially we have a bird or an angel floating in the center of the canvas. Maybe also the reflection of a moon. And we can see that the crowd is fully engaged, so invested in the performance of these artists.
I believe everybody's held down. I need everybody to count down with me. Here we go. We got 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I need 3 questions now. 3 questions now. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for Jessica, Trey, Chris, Miranda, Michelle, and Robert. Make some noise one more time for our fabulous contestants. They put in some real work in just 20 minutes. 20 minutes worth of work, this is what you can get. Make sure you register to vote. You can vote for your favorite piece, don't forget. Don't forget to vote for your favorite piece. Sign up and register. We got the table at the front of the
An excellent second round for Art Battle Dallas. So many different execution styles here in this battle. So many different artistic expressions. So many different textural elements. Just really, really excited about this round. I think that it's going to be very difficult for our crowd to determine the winning artists from this round. But you got to do it. So head on over to artbattle.com/AB2376. That is where you will be casting your vote. You can also bid on these works to take them home at that same link. You don't need to be in the room to collect this work. And often these artists are selling out of their studios at much higher rates. So it's a great opportunity to get in an affordable piece and collect this memory of seeing this piece created live. So we are just enjoying kind of our tour of all of the works that were created in this second round. Here we have Michelle Johnson, and this portrait, lots of great movement. Really enjoyed seeing the way this piece came together, and I'm quite enjoying the subtle just rouge on the lip there. I think that that provides a really nice kind of sumptuousness to the lips of this figure. And Adriana's piece, just a totally stunning execution, and one that you really just want to dive into. This environment is really just so immersive. She's done a really fantastic job of not only creating the piece, but also giving us quite an insight into her studio practice, because Adriana is really well known for these beautiful cloudscapes. With Chris Allen now, and also an artist who was really great at displaying his studio work style. This is very, very close to the way that Chris executes in the studio. Very careful line work, stylized characters, and lots of opaque flat color. Checking out Trey Thompson's piece, a beautiful execution, and I think a lot of the strength of this piece really lays in the composition.
All right, let's go. We gonna go with number one. The first one to move on to phase number three, round number three. Let's make some noise for Harris! Harris, make your way over here and grab all your paint brushes. Make sure you get the right slide over there on the canvases. The canvas is bigger. Round number three is 30 minutes versus 20 minutes, so they get 10 extra minutes, but it's a bigger canvas, so it's a little bit harder, all right? All right, without further ado, move on to number two. DJ Mike, let's make some noise. Drum roll, please, for round number three. The second contestant, make some noise with Tori Peterson. Let's move on to the third contestant for round number three. DJ Mike be running. Y'all need y'all to put your hands together for Adriana Banana. Let's go! Last but not least, round number three, contestant number four. Make some noise, he's been here before, Robert Nelson! I know your people, look, listen, I know everyone, and it might feel a little different because your people didn't get to go to the next round. That's all right, that's good. They get another chance to compete. January 12th, I think you said February 12th? That's when we're going to be able to do it. Valentine's Day weekend, that's when we're going to be able to do it. So make sure you stick around, sign all your paintings, because they're still up for sale. Take pictures with your fans, because you make fans today. I guarantee you met some cool people. They want to buy your artwork. Introduce yourself to them. Let them know that you got permission for sale. Because all these artists, every single one of them, ain't selling their work. If you do custom pieces, they'll make it for you, all right? So one more time, make some noise for our round three contestants. Harris, Tori, and Diana, and Robert. The bar is still open. The bar is still open. Get you something to drink. Give me a tequila. Let's run it.
Round number three, our final round of Art Battle Dallas, starting in just a few seconds. These artists are just getting ready to take on the easel once again. Our four finalists are Harris Feratovic, Tori Peterson, Adriana Holland, and Robert Nelson. I know that I'm particularly excited to see these four going up and painting again. We had such a unique breadth of work from all four of these artists, and I just really can't wait to see what they bring to the final round. Harris, as a reminder, was our artist that was painting entirely with his hands. He's in the striped shirt there on screen right now. Tori Peterson, she did the grayscale portrait with the really interesting pop arty abstract background. Adriana did the absolutely stunning, gorgeous cloudscape, very well executed. And number four, Robert Nelson. He was our wildcard artist, and so he had previously no time to prepare when he painted in round number two and was thrown up to the easel and did just a stunning job of blending a incredible sense of abstraction into this just beautiful landscape. with tons and tons of texture and saturation. So really looking forward to seeing what all 4 of these artists bring again to the easel. Round number 3, our final round, starting very shortly. And final round of Art Battle Dallas today, we have 4 competitors going head to head, throwing down the paint for 30 minutes in our final round. Right now, we're checking out Robert Nielsen, who did this just absolutely incredible textural landscape in the first round, and I really am excited to see what Robert brings to the easel this time. Looks like we're getting a heavy paint application right off the bat. We're seeing him applying some paint, looks like right out of the tube. And I bet that he's going to go in with one of those giant palette knives again to bring that into its textural component. And here we can see Adriana. Adriana did the absolutely stunning cloudscape for her qualifying round piece, and it was no surprise hearing her name being announced as going forward into the final. That was a really stunning piece, and I am so excited to see what Adriana does this round. Is she going to do something very similar? Is she going to do something super different? Who knows? With only 90 seconds elapsed, Adriana really could be going in any direction. And here we are with Tori Peterson. It looks like Tori is going to be taking on another portrait this round, although she is taking a different approach from what we saw her do in her qualifying round. In her qualifying round, she did the background treatment first and then moved into the portrait. Looks like this round she is starting with the portrait right off the bat. With this very careful drawing that we have to the lower portion of the center of the canvas. And here we are with Faris Faratovic, and I just absolutely love seeing Faris painting. He has this really visceral, involved style of painting that is totally based around his hands and painting entirely with his hands. So super exciting. And we can even just see now he's using a rag to wipe away small parts of the paint that he's already applied. And I think that we might potentially be getting a skull portrait going on. And Harris is doing another blue composition, and the way that he's blending this out is just, it's so luminous. He's done a great job at retaining some of the luminosity and the coming through from the blank canvas. He's really using the white of the canvas here to kind of shine and create a translucence throughout the paint by just removing some of it and getting kind of a glowing quality. So great job to Harris there in our first 4 minutes, off to a really strong start already. And here we are with Robert, again with using these gigantic palette knives, and I'm sure that the crowd is just totally engaged with that. Super exciting the way that Robert applies paint. It's very textural, heavy, very like there's a good goopiness to it, if that makes sense. There's a heavy application there, and then you get that kind of beautiful satisfaction of seeing these colors kind of bleeding into each other and just butter against butter of different colors, and it's just so gorgeous. Really engaging to see Robert paint. Moving over to Adriana Holland, and looks like Adriana has taken a little bit more time this round to establish this background color, and really off to a good basis. I feel like Adriana is so familiar with her style. She knows really how exactly she wants to blend and build each piece, knowing which component is going to function best which time. And I think that that is the mark of a strong art battle competitor as well, because art battle is so much about strategy in addition to creating a beautiful painting, because live painting is so different from painting in our studio. In our studio, we really have the opportunity to let different layers dry, especially if you're an acrylic painter. Acrylic paint dries very quickly. And so you have to, in the live setting, work with all of this wet paint and put elements on first that you need to dry so that you can layer over top of them. And Adriana is doing a great job there. Back with Tori Peterson here. And very excited to actually see some more tape going down on the canvas. I loved what Tori did previously in her qualifying round piece, where she created all of these almost like miniature abstract paintings and patterns in all of these taped off portions. And we can see that she's doing that again. And I love that strategy because I think that it's going to allow this piece to be a companion to the first piece. So it's a different composition, a different portrait, different background, but still having these harmonious elements that allows us to kind of continue that story, that visual story that she started in her first round qualifying piece. And the way that she's loaded up these little sponge brushes are kind of looking like a candy corn almost. She's just getting a little bit of a gradient going by the way that she's applying paint to the sponge and then applying it to the canvas, and the pressure is actually creating that slight bit of blend between those colors. Back with Harris here, and we were correct. He is doing a skull portrait. Again, very similar composition to his first round qualifying piece where we had the figure, it was a female portrait previously, kind of sitting in that same space of the canvas, this lower central space. And so for me, that almost creates a narrative where that figure is now this Grim Reaper figure. Like, it's almost like a different cell in an animation sequence, and I think that that's really cool, getting to kind of see the transformation of that character. At least that's the way that I'm perceiving it. Heading back over to Robert Nielsen. So we have passed 10 minutes in our 30-minute final round. So these first 10 minutes that were gifted to the artist, these extra 10 minutes have now elapsed, and we are working into the 20-minute round now. And a 30-minute final can bring its own complications because artists might be used to doing the 20-minute final and find that the 10 minutes might give them the opportunity to end up overpainting. So it's really up to strategy for the artists in how they use those 10 minutes and whether or not it gives them an additional support or if it knocks them off their game. So lots of surprise elements here tonight. And heading over to Tori Peterson and this portrait that she's working on, we can see that she's gone very colorful in the portrait this time. Previously, her qualifying round, the portrait was totally in grayscale, and we are definitely getting treated to a very, very colorful portrait with this super bright flowing red hair. Just dealing with some technical difficulties with our camera tonight. Potentially a signal issue at the venue. So back with Tori here, and Tori has decided to take more of an illustrative approach this round and is now in here with a marker and is doing these kind of flowing tears coming down from the eyes of this character. Heading back over to Harris. And the way that he's layering this skull is so great. We had Harris start the painting by laying down all of this blue, getting in those gorgeous gradients and kind of creating that depth of atmosphere all around the character. And he had left just the place of the skull blank and was using the underlying canvas to create that brightness by not applying blue there. And so he had left that white and then added orange on top of it. And now we have this additional layering of the yellow that is really just coming through so strongly. We have such a high level of saturation here, and the contrast between our more kind of atmospheric and blended out elements of the background mixed with this hyper vibrancy in the yellow of that skull is creating just such a great contrast. And back over checking out Robert Nielsen. And seeing all of these gorgeous color blends. And he's definitely creating a landscape that exists within the same world as his first round piece. And I really appreciate that. I feel like we're just getting kind of a continuation of this environment. And I love the way that Robert is blending all of these cool colors together, just kind of melding into each other and then giving us these little pops of heat, these little warm moments with the red and the yellow, and even the lime green, that super fluorescent green that he's got going in, is actually focusing and functioning as warm color. We are back for our final few minutes of Art Battle in Dallas. We are now into the home stretch, and these paintings are looking absolutely fantastic. We have Harris here putting all of these interesting, whimsical elements into this Skeletor-esque portrait here. Our incredible Grim Reaper that he's been working on, and the addition of these mushrooms just really add this little bit of whimsy, but also a macabre element to it. And just really enjoying the execution here from Ferris. Again, with that special technique of him using completely only his hands. We have 5 minutes remaining on the clock in our 30-minute final for Art Battle in Dallas. Definitely some really strong contenders here. Robert has done just such a fantastic job of creating this really involved, ethereal landscape that is serving as a great companion piece to his qualifying round, definitely existing within that same world, and just loving all of the surreal color choices that Robert has chosen, and the contrast of cool and warm colors. And Adriana looks like she has created more of a stormy scene at this point in her cloud execution. Definitely getting a more complex vibe from this piece, and almost like a fighting of light and dark between these storm clouds and these less aggressive, more daylight clouds. And we're getting kind of this peaking of light in between them. This piece is just feeling very hopeful to me, really enjoying it. Great emotive quality from Adriana, which can be very difficult to execute in a non-figurative work, creating a feeling from creating an environment. So great job to Adriana. And of course, we're getting our final few danced out moments from these competitors, and we're seeing Tori really vibing with the energy in the room and just putting these finishing touches on her portrait here. Some really cool elements within this piece and a very interesting color palette. We've got this kind of fluorescent yellow to green bouncing off of this red, and the way that Tori has introduced the black into the hair is giving us that textural component and also those pops of shine. So some cool contrast with this kind of painterly technique mixed with a more illustrative approach. And just some super careful brushwork there from Tori. And this piece is a lot of fun. I think Tori's work has a really great ability to convey a joyfulness and a playfulness, especially with the use of those sponge daubers and the shapes. It just lends this kind of pop art feel to it. So voting is open at artbattle.com/AB2376. Heading over the what Harris is working on, how he has decided to finish the last elements of this Grim Reaper portrait. And he's just adding in that little pop of kind of atmospheric light coming behind the character. And just seeing him do that so quickly and like effortlessly is just absolutely amazing. Just adding in that pop of contrast that really helps to bring the figure forward. And again, the execution with the hands has just been so totally engaging. Some really, really great work in this final round. And I think that it is going to be a tough choice for our audience of who they vote forward to be the winner.
Y'all know what time it is, round number 3. Make sure you register to vote. You can still place your vote right now. Make sure you place your vote for your favorite contestant, whether it be Aris, whether it be Tori, Adriana like Banana, or my boy Robert. It don't matter who it is, make sure you vote, make sure you vote, make sure you vote. Register to vote if you have not. Go to the stage, give them your number, they'll text you the link. You can also bid. You can buy your favorite painting tonight. Just place a bid. You never know. You can take it home with you, get it, put it in your living room.
It's funny because like usually
Show it off to all your friends, all your guests.
like,
Getting darkness.
Our battle we do this every year, multiple times a year. The winner goes to represent the Dallas at the city finals, and the winner from Dallas goes to represent the state, and the winner from the state goes to represent the nation. Don't forget, this is the real deal, Holyfield.
A fantastic and intense final round for Art Battle Dallas. We have such different paintings from each of these artists. I think it's really going to be difficult for our audience to choose which artist they think is best. But make sure that you go to the link that is on the screen right there, and you can see all of the works created tonight, everything is available for silent auction and will be for sale for just a few more minutes. So make sure that if you have had your eye on a piece tonight to get those bids in. Once again, we're only going to have one single winner of Art Battle Dallas tonight. And so it is super important to get your votes in. Each and every vote counts. We often hear from our voting manager, Gina, that this difference between a winning artist can be as small as a single vote. So even if you're having a hard time, choose your favorite. I know that I'm having a hard time picking my favorite right now. Although I do believe that Harris is a top contender in my mind. This piece is so strong and so impactful. I feel like it's just visually stunning. Robert, again, just fantastic job creating all of these really wonderful color blends and balancing these kind of softer and sharper elements. This piece is really so much about balance and balancing texture, balancing softness, balancing light and dark and warm and cool. And Robert has just done such a fantastic job doing that here. So the votes are pouring in and people are voting in Dallas. So if you have yet to cast your vote, make sure that you do so. And Adriana did just such a fantastic job as well with this piece. Really kind of creating a storyline and a narrative of light versus darkness, and just executing this beautiful piece, very technically sound, but also creating this gorgeous emotive quality. And finally, our only portrait of the round from Tori Peterson, and really engaging with a lot of different elements here. Some painterly, some illustrative, some pop, some dark, and just really enjoyed watching Tori build that piece as well. We will have our winner announcement in just a few seconds. We are just waiting for all of our votes to come in. The winner of tonight's event will be moving forward to the Dallas City Championships, which are going to be taking place on February 12th. So very, very excited about that. High stakes tonight. And the winner from the Dallas City Championships taking place next month will actually end up moving forward into the state championship. And then the winner of the state championship will be moving forward into the national championship. So lots of exciting things in the pipeline for Art Battle as the tournament progresses and ultimately comes to its giant, exciting conclusion in the national championship. So be sure to stay tuned to all of our social channels as we announce those dates.
Here we go.
Our Art Battle Dallas tonight has been announced. A huge congratulations to Harris Feratovic. We will be seeing Harris painting again in the Dallas City Finals happening next month on February 12th. So be sure to stay tuned to our social channels for announcements about that. We will also be streaming it. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Congratulations to Harris and congratulations to all 12 of our incredible artists that painted tonight. Thank you and good night.